Diego Maradona, also known as El Pibe de Oro, the Golden Child, was a renegade, maverick, and genius. Deified in Argentina and Naples alike, and heralded as perhaps the greatest player of all time, his is story of a player who conquered the world with a little help from the hand of God. No stranger to controversy, his playing career was punctuated by clashes with the authorities, ties with the mafia, and constant struggles with substance abuse. Champion of the world in 1986, 8 years later, he was disgraced on that very same stage when banned for a positive drug test at USA 94. But where did it all start? Diego Armando Maradona was born on October 30th, 1960, in a town called Lanús, but grew up in Villa Fiorito, a gritty, poverty-stricken town on the outskirts of Buenos Aires. It was these humble beginnings where Diego's extraordinary journey began. On his 3rd birthday, young Diego received a simple yet life-changing gift: a football. This modest present was to be transformative, and with which he spent countless hours practicing on rubble pitches, honing his skills and nurturing his prodigious talent. Nicknamed Pelusa as a child, his first footballing furore began at Argentinos juniors, aged 9. With the Cebolitas, young onions, Maradona quickly became a sensation, a linchpin for a team that went on an incredible 138-game undefeated run. In 1976, at just 16, he made his debut for the Argentinos juniors senior team and was quick to dazzle. As a young man, this first stint in men's football helped him develop his unique style of play. He would run rings through entire teams who would in turn be trying to kick lumps out of Diego, but with the ball glued to his feet and with his low centre of gravity, he would consistently perplex defences. Over 5 years, Maradona would eventually score an astonishing 116 goals in 166 games for Argentinos juniors. In 1978, a 17-year-old Diego was originally on the long list for the Argentinian squad for their home World Cup, however never featured for La Albiceleste when the tournament finally came around. Although Argentina would go on to win the World Cup, the wider story has a darker side, as President Jorge Rafael Videla used the national team's success to mask the shady dealings of his military dictatorship. But more about that in another video. The next year, he finally announced himself on a global stage at the World Youth Championships in Tokyo, where needless to say, he ripped it up. It was only a matter of time until bigger clubs would be sniffing around, and in 1981, Boca Juniors stole a march on River Plate when they signed up Diego. His spell at Boca would be short but sweet, immediately becoming the star of the team and leading them to the league title in his first season. Already being heralded as the best player in the world, 1982 would see a raft of European clubs fight for his signature, and when Barcelona offered Boca a world record fee of $7.6 million for Diego, that deal was sealed. After the 1982 World Cup in Spain, Maradona set up shop in Catalonia, destined to be the next hero of Barcelona. However, the move was a leap into the unknown, and Diego immediately faced immense pressure to transform the club's fortunes. His time at Camp Nou was a mix of brilliance, injuries, and controversy. Despite suffering severe injuries that nearly ended his career, Maradona's impact on the pitch was undeniable, helping his team to win the Copa del Rey against Real Madrid, in addition to the Spanish Super Cup, defeating Atletico Bilbao. However, the millstone placed around his neck to be the saviour of Barcelona, paired with the unruly brutality he faced on the pitch, meant that he was never able to live up to expectations at Camp Nou. His fate at Barca was finally sealed in what turned out to be his last game for the club. The 1984 Copa del Rey final against Atletico Bilbao saw Maradona in the midst of a full-scale brawl. It was here where Diego unleashed his inner MMA fighter, knocking out the unused substitute Miguel Angel Sola with a jumping knee kick to the face. More shenanigans and kung fu kicks followed, witnessed by the Spanish royal family in the stadium and by the entire country, with the game aired live on TV. Once courted by every single elite club in Europe, he briefly became persona non grata in footballing circles. Maradona made the decision to move to a struggling Napoli, a transfer that would reshape Italian football. At that time, Italian football was dominated by the big clubs in the north of the country, Inter Milan, AC Milan, and Juventus. Naples, being one of the poorest and most violent areas of Europe, was often the butt of jokes from Italian northerners. Visiting fans would chant about local earthquake disasters and taunt the home crowd for being cholera-ridden, singing "Colorati, terremotati." However, and harking back to his roots as an underdog from the poverty-stricken Villa Fiorito, he felt an affinity with the city and people of Naples and went on a one-man mission to change their fortunes. Naples embraced Maradona as their own, seeing him not just as a football star but as a beacon of hope for a city craving success. Maradona delivered spectacularly, scoring 10 goals and leading Napoli to their first ever Serie A title in 1987, lifting the Scudetto and etching his name in Neapolitan history. Indeed, Diego's influence extended beyond the pitch, unifying a troubled Naples and instilling pride and dignity in its people. His first title with Napoli was soon followed by victory in the 1989 UEFA Cup final and a second Scudetto in 1990. Napoli were no longer a joke, the people of Naples had reason to cheer, and Maradona was viewed as a living god. This last point was exemplified by his personal trainer, Fernando Signorini, who recounts a time when, after a blood test, a nurse stole a vial and took it straight to the local church. If you now forgive it, we'll jump into the DeLorean and take a brief journey back in time to look at perhaps Diego's most iconic moment. The 1986 World Cup in Mexico stands as Diego Maradona's ultimate footballing triumph. This tournament showcased Maradona at his peak, where his extraordinary talent led Argentina to victory and solidified his legendary status. His performances included the infamous Hand of God goal and the mesmerising goal of the century against England in the quarterfinals, moments that captured his complex legacy of brilliance and controversy. Argentina was still smarting from its defeat by the British during the Falklands War of 1982, and so Maradona and almost all of Argentina regarded the game as an opportunity for revenge. His first goal of the game saw the 1.65 m forward outjump the England keeper, Peter Shilton, and punch the ball into the net. With the England players incensed, Maradona wheeled off in celebration of his leaping header. Years later, he said in an interview, "I was waiting for my teammates to embrace me and no one came. I told them, come hug me, or the referee isn't going to allow it." However, there was nothing illegitimate about his second goal, which started with a stunning individual run from his own half, under a shadowed star at the heart of the Azteca Stadium. Dribbling past 5 players, he slinked his way into the England box and slid the ball past Shilton, sealing one of the greatest goals in World Cup history. In the final against West Germany, Maradona also proved pivotal, playing the killer pass for the winning goal in a 3-2 defeat of West Germany. Already loved in Argentina, he became a national hero. The following World Cup, Italia '90, was not short of controversy either. Maradona's Argentina faced the hosts Italy in the semi-final. Ahead of the game, Maradona made a plea to his Neapolitan brothers and sisters, urging the ultras to turn their back on Italy and support Argentina, claiming "Napoli non è Italia," Naples isn't Italy. At the Stadio San Paolo in Naples, large swathes of the home crowd followed Diego's orders, booing the Italian national anthem and openly supporting Argentina, or more aptly, Maradona. Despite defeating Italy in the semi-final, they went on to lose the final to West Germany, with Andreas Bremer scoring the all-important goal as the game ended 1-0 at the Stadio Olimpico in Rome. Back in Naples, despite the honours on the pitch, his time in the city was also marked by personal struggles and controversies that perhaps overshadowed his on-field achievements. His heroic status in the city came at a huge cost. Mobbed at every corner, he ended up in the pocket of the mob themselves, the Camorra, a notorious mafia crew. Alongside protection, the mafia offered Diego unlimited access to all of his vices: partying, cocaine, and women. Indeed, this nefarious activity caught up with him in January 1991. One cold night, Diego made a call to a known Camorra associate to order 2 prostitutes. However, unbeknown to him, the authorities had been tapping the call. This call was used as evidence to charge the Argentinian with cocaine possession and distribution, as he had also offered one of the prostitutes some powder. These troubles were then compounded further later that year in April, when he tested positive in a routine drugs test. Once happy, Bright-eyed and full of spirit, Diego was led away by police in tears and later given a 15-month ban from the game. Having been a hero in his adopted country for so long, Maradona once again became persona non grata, with his reputation in Italy now fully in tatters. In a later life interview in which he discussed his addiction to cocaine, Maradona said, "In the beginning, drugs make you euphoric. It's like winning a championship, so you think, who cares about tomorrow since I won the championship today?" After serving his drugs ban, Maradona returned to Spain in 1992 for a stint at Sevilla, before returning to his native Argentina to link up with Newell's Old Boys in Rosario. But now for some more controversy at yet another World Cup. At 33 years old, Maradona was expected to be somewhat of a fading light at USA 94. However, the world was stunned to see his aging legs move as if he was still a young buck. In Argentina's opening game against Greece, he scored the third goal in a 3-0 victory. But something clearly was amiss. As he ran off to celebrate, he seemed absolutely crazed, almost foaming at the mouth as he sprinted towards the TV cameras, eyes bulging out of his head and face contorted. Suspicion was raised, and after the next match against Nigeria, a nurse took him away by the arm for a drugs test, which he failed spectacularly. FIFA banished him from the World Cup for testing positive for having 5 different types of ephedrine in his system. Disgraced once again, Maradona said in an emotional interview, "They cut off my legs and wouldn't let me defend myself. I didn't use drugs. I don't know what happened. I swear that I wasn't doped, but I see that they don't care." In 1995, his final hurrah took him back to Boca Juniors, where he was greeted like the hero he was in the eyes of the home fans. Season ticket sales went through the roof and the Bombonera would be packed to the rafters to see Maradona play out his twilight years. Of course, as the true showman he was, Diego had to sign out in style. October 25th, 1997 marked his last game for Boca in the Super Classic against arch-rivals River Plate. Boca would win the derby 2-1 and Diego signed off his professional playing career once more as a legend. With so much that can be and has been said about this maverick, perhaps it would be fitting to end with a quote from the great man himself. "I am Maradona, who makes goals, who makes mistakes. I can take it all. I have shoulders big enough to fight with everybody." And so he did. Thanks so much for watching. Please do like, comment and share if you enjoyed this one, and stick around for the next video on the Football Documentary channel.